I'm Anthony Amp Elmore, President and founder of the Proud Black Buddhist World Association. Our lecture today: learn how to be a Black Buddhist in America. Black Lives Matter. This may seem like a simple question, but how does one become a Black Buddhist in America? No Japanese or Asian or white person can tell you how you can become a Black Buddhist in America. The best way that I can tell you how to become a Black Buddhist in America is to practice the correct teachings of Buddhism. And the correct Buddhist teachings of Buddhism is practicing the Buddhist teachings of Nichiren Shonin, who teaches us that Shakyamuni taught us that his highest teaching that he have taught, is teaching, and will teach is the Lotus Sutra. Now, we at the Proud Black Buddhist World Association, we are Nichiren Buddhists. Around 1985, a 24-year-old Barack Obama came to work as a community organizer in Chicago. And perhaps a man as liberal thinking as Barack Obama, he could have very well got involved in the SGI Nichiren Shoshu Buddhist organization. And had he got involved, we would not have a black president today, because what they teach you, or what they teach Buddhists in the SGI and Nichiren Shoshu, they teach you to marginalize yourself as a black person. They teach a philosophy of cultural imperialism where you marginalize your black culture. Now, Barack Obama had a choice to make. Because his mama was white and his daddy was black, he could have been like many African Americans today who called themselves neither black or white, but they called themselves other, like perhaps a Tiger Woods. Now, Barack Obama had a choice to make, and that is he had to learn how to be a black person in America. Just as Barack Obama had to learn how to be a black person in America, we who are Black Buddhists have to learn how to be a Black Buddhist in America. Now, let's read what Barack Obama said. Now, he said this: to be black was to be the beneficiary of a great inheritance, a special destiny, glorious burdens that only we were strong enough to bear. But as culturally diverse as Hawaii was, its African American population was minuscule. With no father or family members to serve as role models, Obama reflected, quote, "I was trying to raise myself to be a black man in America, and beyond the giving of my appearance, no one around me seemed to know exactly what that meant." President Barack Obama had to learn how to be a black person in America, just as we who are Buddhists have to learn how to be Black Buddhists in America. Barack Obama had to learn to be a black man. Being black does not mean that you hate or dislike white people. The one thing that Barack Obama did was to deeply embrace his African American heritage. And this is what I recommend to you who would like to be Buddhist in America. Those African Americans, you're black and you want to be Buddhist in America, we recommend you, the first thing to do was embrace your African American heritage. Early Buddhism in America was like Barack Obama's political movement of cultural diversity. Barack Obama went on to develop how to be black in America. In 1988, he went to Kenya to connect with his African roots. He wrote a book called Dreams of My Father. Now, also in 1988, he went to start the Harvard Law School. In 1989, he met his future wife, Michelle Robinson. Michelle actually went to Kenya in 1992. In fact, I was in Kenya the same time Michelle and Barack was in Kenya. Now, at the end of 1989, Barack Obama became editor of the Harvard Law Review. He was the first black editor to ever have to happen at Harvard. So that was a tremendous achievement. Now, Michelle Robinson was not just a black woman who was an attorney. She minored in black history in college, and her best friend was Jesse Jackson's daughter, Santita Jackson. You see her at the Obama wedding as the maid of honor. Michelle Obama was connected to the black community because she was connected to Jesse Jackson family. Now, history teaches us that the most successful black people in the world were rooted in their culture and rooted in their community. Let me give you an example. Dr. Martin Luther King was inspired by his mentor, Morehouse College President, Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays. The great Muhammad Ali was inspired by Malcolm X. It was Alex Haley who wrote the autobiography of Malcolm X. It was Alex Haley who later come to write Roots. It was Dr. Carter G. Woodson who started Black History Month. Now, this is what happened. In order to control blacks and make our ancestors slaves and to feel inferior to whites, racist whites extricated black history. History shows us that the most successful blacks in the world are those who have a sense of roots, culture, and history. The list goes on and on. For example, look at Oprah Winfrey, who went to Tennessee State University, a black college. Now, Oprah has went on to open up a school in South Africa. Let me tell you kind of like a funny story. I was this young, hotshot guy who liked to start off, a little black history. And I was talking to this doctor who had let me put carpet in his office. And I was just telling him about how I knew history. And I was telling him about the Tuskegee Airmen. See, during the time of World War II, whites said blacks could not fly airplanes. And so they had an experiment at Tuskegee. That's the black college in Alabama that was started by Booker T. Washington. And they had this experiment with black pilots because they said black pilots couldn't fly. Well, it turned out the black pilots really kicked Hitler's butt. And I was telling this Dr. Linkwood Williams about the Tuskegee Airmen, and I was just boasting. And Dr. Williams says, young man, I know about the Tuskegee Airmen. I was one of them. I said, what? He said, yes, I was the Tuskegee Airman. So I went and researched it, and look at this picture. Not only was Dr. Linkwood Williams a Tuskegee Airman, this guy was a Tuskegee flight instructor. And all of the history and all the things I read about Dr. Linkwood Williams was the guy who was an instructor. They had this guy in the National Museum, and he was the face of the black pilots because he was a flight instructor. In fact, in 2012, we would always have at our home Black History Month African dinners. And I invited Congressman Steve Cohen to our home, and I asked Congressman Corn to honor Dr. Linkwood Williams. And Dr. Linkwood Williams came to our home and we gave him an honor. And I guess sometime later, I found out that President Obama had given the Tuskegee Airmen a gold medal. And then invited them to come to Washington. And I saw Dr. Williams at the bank. I said, you going to Washington to get your gold medal? He said, nah, I'm not worried about that. So I come to find out that this doctor just came to my house because I was a young man, and he was just wanting to give me some encouragement. So what I learned from that is that we who are Black Buddhists, we must become like the Dr. Linkwood Williams, who's the Tuskegee Airman, who was there to give us encouragement. Now, Barack Obama Jr. was America's first Black president. What is the most significant contribution did the presidency of Barack Obama Jr. have in regards to Black people? Now, we can answer that question. Barack Obama Jr.'s presidency gave us Black people the culture of inclusion. That is, a Black man could be the president of the United States of America. We are included. This is the greatest present, a gift that Barack Obama gave us. Now, when it comes to Buddhism in America, the one absolute thing the Asians, particularly the Japanese, give to Black people, we can answer this question concretely. Buddhist teachers absolutely give Black people, Black culture, history, and language exclusion. The one thing Japanese Buddhist leaders make sure that Black people get is cultural exclusion. The SGI, Nichiren Shoshu, Nichiren Shu, and other Japanese sects make it a practice to extricate all Black Buddhist history. You could look at any Buddhist statue and you can see the black hair. And even though they got the black hair, even though science and genetics tell us that the Indus Valley civilization was Black people, because we have archaeological, anthropological, literary, and we have genetic evidence that the people in the Indus Valley were Black people. Genetic science proves this, and even with genetic science, and even with concrete, infallible evidence, white people and Japanese people would not admit that the Buddha was a person of African descent. Now, the topic of the Buddhist lecture is how to be Black Buddhist in America. How do we do a Black Buddhist? How can we become a Black Buddhist in America? Another way to explain this lecture is how not to become a Black Buddhist in America. When you are in SGI, Nichiren Shoshu, Nichiren Shu, Black Buddhists give up their Black culture and their identity. Now, let us move to the writings of Nichiren Shonin on this subject. Now, he has a Gosho called On the Proper Way to Preach the Doctrine. Now, in this Gosho on the proper way to preach the doctrine, Nichiren kind of tells Black people to be yourself, because Nichiren Shonin wants us to be ourselves. Now, in the Gosho, that's called On the Proper Way to Teach the Doctrine, Nichiren writes, quote, "So you have gone to the capital, and before much time has passed, you are changing your name? A piece of utter nonsense. No doubt you have changed your way of speaking, and acquired the accent of the capital, like a mouse that is changed into a bat, but in fact is neither bird nor mouse. You are neither a country priest nor a priest of the capital. You are behaving like Shobu. You should just go on speaking like a country person, otherwise you will sound ridiculous. And as for changing your name to Sancho, the characters of which are the same as those of the personal name of retired Emperor Oki, it's all too absurd. You see, what Nichiren taught his disciples is to be themselves. It is utterly ridiculous for a bunch of people to go in and become Buddhists and start acting like they're Japanese people and give up on themselves, their culture, their history. This is what Nichiren Shonin preaches against. Now, I want you to Google these words. It's called In Letter to NSA Friends. It's called Letter to NSA Friends by Anthony Elmore. In March of 1991, I walked away from the SGI Buddhist organization because they were racist. They got rid of all of the black leaders, and I wrote a letter to my NSA friends. Now, in the letter it says, quote, Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism is a universal religion for all people. One need not become or try to emulate a Japanese to become a Nichiren Shoshu Buddhist. However, in Memphis, a dangerous precedent has emerged. Some of our African American leaders in Memphis articulate with Japanese accents and posture as if they were Japanese. In NSA in Memphis, African Americans no longer have a cultural identity. In NSA meetings among African Americans, there's a cultural and spiritual void, unquote. Daisaku Ikeda got rid of all the black leaders in America, and in Memphis they brought in a Japanese by the name of George Cassava. George Cassava had Negroes in Memphis speaking in Japanese accents. I mean, it says, yes, I am going to do this. I am going to be a good Buddhist. Man, it was crazy. In Memphis, we had over 300 black people practicing Buddhism. And today, you're lucky if you got 10 people. The absolute way to know that you have black Buddhist equality is for black people to put themselves in a position where they control policy. Now, when you can control the black Buddhist policy, then you know that you are free. Let me give you an example of black Buddhist policy. Tina Turner is the most noted Buddhist living on planet Earth. Tina Turner made black Buddhist policy. Tina Turner did not cut her hair or tarnish her brand by acting like she was an Asian. Tina Turner has always been Tina Turner. You would never see Tina Turner with some Asian monk or an Asian leader in her face. Buddhism has nothing to do with an Asian. When we look at Buddhism, we see Asian culture and call it Buddhism. When you see Tina Turner and Buddhism, you see a proud black Buddhist. Tina Turner can articulate Buddhist teachings, and you never will see an Oriental in her shadow. The first lesson to learning how to become a black Buddhist is by not putting an Asian or Japanese in your shadow. The Buddha Shakyamuni teaches us to put faith in the law and not in persons. It's okay to be black and Buddhist. Nichiren Shonin writes in The Ghost Show, it's called The 14 Slanders. He says, quote, "When one chants the Daimoku, bear in mind that there are no distinctions among those who embrace the Lotus Sutra. The Blessed One gains will be equal to those of Shakyamuni Buddha." A commentary states, quote, "Both the beings in the environment of the Avinci Hell exist entirely within the life of the high sage, that is, Buddha, and what is more, the life in the environment of Vajrayana Buddha, or Vajrayana, which means Buddha, never transcend the lives of common mortals. In common sense terms, the Lotus Sutra teaches us that we all have 10 worlds from hell to Buddhahood. We should understand that there is no distinction between any of us. Finally, there is the precept taught by the Buddha that we should practice Buddhism according to the customs of the region. We are African Americans who have a glorious heritage, and we should practice Buddhism inclusive of our Black history, culture, and language. We're not Asian or white, and we do not need Asian or white Buddhist teachers. The Buddha instructed us to follow the law and not persons. In regards to the George Floyd murder, we recognize that Black Lives Matter, and it is important that we become proud Black Buddhists. You see, in the Gosho, the Expedient Meanings and Lifespan chapters, the Gosho reads, quote, "When we scrutinize the sutras and treaties with care, we find that there is a teaching about a precept known as following the customs of the region that corresponds to this. The meaning of this precept is, so long as no seriously offensive act is involved, then even if one were to depart to some slight degree from the teaching of Buddhism, it would be better to avoid going against the manners and customs of the country. This is a precept expounded by the Buddha," unquote. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the Buddha taught us that we must follow the customs of the land. It is not natural for some Japanese to come to some Black community talking about teaching Buddhism when you don't even know the people in the community and the people don't know you. And we don't need another master. We need to practice Buddhism, and we need to teach ourselves. You see, in our world today, Black lives matter. We're not Japanese, white, or Asian. We must become the masters in our own Black communities. We learn how to become Black Buddhists in America via practicing and teaching the correct teachings of Buddhism in our communities. I am Anthony F. Elmore, bringing to you a Black Buddhist lecture. Learn how to be a Black Buddhist in America. Thank you very much.